So I took on another little project. This is a Honda VT600C, and it was from 1997. This is one of our friends. Couldn't find anybody to work on it and asked if I would give it a try. So I am going to try to get this thing running. I've done it in the past. I have fixed motorcycles, jet skis, and I haven't filmed it. And I think it actually would make good content of DIY. My last motorcycle I just finished was this one. This is a 2006 Harley Softail. I painted the bike, rebuilt the carburetor, did some engine work on it, and it runs perfect now. So I kind of want to do the same with this. I don't know how deep I'm going to get into this one. As you can see here, the paint's peeling up on it. So really all our friend wants us to do is get it running. I'll talk to her more, see if she does want me to paint it or do anything additional to it. But as for now, let me just see if this thing is viable. I'm going to go ahead and look at the fuel tank, probably pull the carburetors, check the filters, check the fluids, and go that route. We got spark on both, so I'm going to try to rig up some gas and see if we can't get this thing to start. There's a little gas left in that filter. I'm going to go ahead and see if it cranks over. Yeah, she'll run. So I think the next step is I'm gonna get a new filter. I'm gonna do that gas tank and probably change the fluids. So we'll go from there. Carburetor was extremely hard to get out. So I'm gonna go ahead and open the bowls to see how it looks inside. The diaphragms, I don't know if you can hear them, they actually sound pretty good. So we'll see. Just making sure they're clear. You just want to make sure you can see through them. There's nothing inside of them. Again, you want to be very careful with this stuff. It breaks pretty easy. So I cleaned it up real good. I am gonna have to get a rebuild kit though. I tried these diaphragms and one of them is leaking and it actually had water in it. That one. So I'm just go ahead and get a rebuild kit and just replace everything in here. These gaskets too are really big to replace because they just get flat and start leaking. So it's a good idea to replace these every time. All right, let me get everything on order. All right, now we're going to start on the fuel tank. I'm using KBS to clean it. I used this on my Harley and it actually worked really well, so I'm going to try it again. You see in there, it's pretty rusty, so we'll see how that looks. This first is supposed to clean off all the rust. This is going to pretty much dissolve the rust afterwards. And then there's a tank coating inside that we'll put in after we do these two steps. So the first thing we'll do is the KBS clean. We're mixing a 1-to-1 with the solvent, and I'm going to put hot water in it as the other half. Another thing I just forgot to do is seal this bottom hole. So we're gonna let this soak. I'm gonna rotate it like every 15 minutes, let it soak for like probably a couple hours. You can even let this soak to 24 hours or more. This is a really important part. You wanna get all the loose rust out and any big flakes, you want all these gone. That way the etcher can come in and get ready for the the actual final seal coat. So we'll let this sit for a couple hours. So I shook up nuts and bolts in there to knock any stubborn rust loose. You can also use a chain, which a chain would probably be a lot easier. I had to shake that thing for probably 30 minutes to get the last bit of nuts out. Also, when I was filling it with water, I don't know if y'all saw that, but there's a pinhole in this tank. I'm gonna see if this coating will stop that pinhole from leaking. If it doesn't, I'm gonna have to do something else. Either braze it, because it's probably super thin. I think welding it would just blow through, or use some sort of epoxy. So I'll see what I need to do with that. It's actually a pretty decent sized pinhole. But I'm gonna go ahead and dry the tank. I'm gonna dry it a little bit quicker. I'm gonna use a heat gun so I can expedite this and go ahead and get the blast in there. This blast will also eat the rust, so it might make that hole even a little bit bigger. I mean, it kind of looks okay here, but the back side's probably this big around. So we'll go ahead and start drying this tank out. Before I do that, let's go ahead and take a look inside. So there's still surface rust in there. I don't see any big scaling or anything, so we'll see what this this blast does to it. Alright, so there's multiple holes in this tank. I mean, look at the size of that one. So I'm gonna have to research what I want to do with it. And there's a big one right here too, so we'll see. All right, I've been rotating this thing every 5 minutes for the past hour and shaking it up. So it's time to get it out of there. This stuff is an acid, so you are gonna need to dispose of it properly. I'm gonna put it in this bucket and get rid of it later. All right, we'll go ahead and take a look in there. I mean, not perfect, but definitely a lot better. What I'm going to do now is rinse this out, get all the acid out. I'm going to let it dry overnight. You want it completely dry before you actually put the coating in there. And you don't really have to worry about flash rust either. What this acid does, it also deposits zinc on top of the metal, so no flash rust. So we'll go ahead and rinse this out, get it all cleaned up, and let it dry overnight. All right, I decided to go ahead and do the tank sealer today. And here it is. This takes, on the paper it says 4 days for it to fully cure. I'm gonna give it 5 days, so I'm gonna go ahead and do it today so I'll get an extra day head start. I've already dried it out. I used the heat gun, and then I'll let it cool back to room temperature. I also used my blower and blew air through it to cool a little faster. So it's back to room temperature. It's completely dry inside. We're going to go ahead and open this, and you want to stir it and don't shake it, because shaking is going to put air bubbles in it. I'm going to work this into the tank for around 30 minutes, just gently rolling it, trying to get everything coated. Once that's done, I'm going to pour out all the excess. And then like every 5 minutes for maybe an hour, turn the tank just to make sure there's no puddles. If you put it on too thick, it overheats and bubbles off and it doesn't stick right. So you want to work with it. Be very patient with this and it should be fine. We'll go ahead and get started. This kit does 5 gallons. This tank is actually a 2.5 gallon tank, but I'm gonna pour it all in there because once you open this, it's done. You can't reuse it. You can reuse pretty much everything else I used today, but it's gonna cure and be done. So I'm just gonna use the whole thing, make sure it gets good and coated, and pour out a lot of it. All right, I've worked with it for probably 20 minutes. You could do it up to 30 minutes, but then it starts to get a setting, I should say. It starts to get hard. So I'm gonna go ahead and start draining this out of the tank. So I had to take the whole brake system apart. Took the calipers off, the reservoir off, and I broke it all down to pieces. This is a piece of the reservoir, this is your actual pump. The seals actually look pretty good. It was just really gunky in there. The caliper, pulled out both of these. They actually don't look bad. I sanded off some rust at the very end. This is the part that actually protrudes from the caliper and pushes your brake pads. So right now, I had them in the part washer. Got the caliper over there, the reservoir getting cleaned. All right, got the parts in to rebuild these carburetors. Go ahead and get started. So this is the float. And that was your needle. This is your float needle. It actually looks good. I'm gonna go ahead and replace the float. This one just like that. tried my best to save this, but it's just wore out. I was gonna rebuild it, but a new one was actually pretty cheap. It was only like 25 bucks for a whole new setup. So I'm just gonna go ahead and install a new one now. Changed the oil. I took it for a ride. The first thing is my speedometer wasn't working, so I had to take the cable apart, and I found out it's broken. So I have a new speedometer cable coming in. This piece here just attaches to the front tire to tell you the speed. Another issue I'm having is with the cooling. The fan is not kicking on. So this is water cooled, and it gets up to temp, but that fan never kicks on. So I'm going to make sure that fan works, do a little troubleshooting, just to make sure there's no fuses or wires that are broken or anything like that. So I got a fan hooked up to my bench power supply, and it works. So either the switch needs to get replaced, or the engine wasn't getting hot enough. So I'll keep troubleshooting and see what the issue is. So I unplugged my temp sensor. I got it up to temp for sure now. It's over 200 degrees. So here's what actually goes into my fan. The back side of this radiator is the actual temp sensor that's supposed to go to ground once it reaches a certain temp. I believe it's 200. So I'm gonna go ahead and ground this out to the chassis. If I can get a good contact. It's already cooled off enough where it's not gonna do it. It's already cooled off enough, but it did kick the fan on once I grounded it. So if you have this issue, just get your bike up to temperature. Use a heat gun or something so you can actually tell what the fins are. They were reading about just over 200. So it's already cooled off enough where it's not going to kick back off. If you see here, I had to sand down this bolt a little bit just to get some bare metal so I can actually have a ground. But yeah, it's already cooled off enough, but that's how you test it. So we're going to go ahead and order a new sensor and replace that. So let's talk about this fuel tank. So after all that work I did with painting it, I also did a clear coat on it, and I did the liner in there, it did not seal the tank, and there are a lot of small holes in this tank. So what I'm going to do now is go through with some JB Weld. It's a 2-part epoxy, and just see if I can cover all these holes, trying to save ourselves from having to buy a new tank. So we'll see if we can't just patch these holes up. We've done a lot to this bike. Rebuilt the carburetor, put a new heat thermostat in there to actually switch on the fan, painted it. This tank has been a headache. So what I ended up doing, again, sanded it down, was doing JP Weld, just a 2-part epoxy on it. But every time I repaired a hole, 10 more popped up. Not sure if you can see these little bubbles, but I mean, even in this area right here, there's probably 20. So there's tiny pinholes all in the front of this tank. You see on this side. So what I ended up doing was just rattle canning it, use some black spray paint just to cover it so the tank wouldn't rust, and then put a clear coat over it. My plan is to talk to the owner, see what she wants to do. Right now they're really small pinholes. It's not an issue. She can drive it for a while, but this tank is going to need to get replaced. The speedometer works. Everything on the bike works, and it actually runs really good too. Start it up. I mean, it cranks right up. All the lights work. See my turn signals. So everything on the bike works. So what I'll do right now is I'll heat it up real quick. I'll let you see that the fan turns on. So I'll be back just in a second. So as you can hear now, the fan kicked on. It actually kicked on, I think, around 175. So it cools it off pretty quick. So that works. So I'm pretty happy how it turned out, at least for the running part. I drove it around a bit. I wasn't able to get it up too fast in my neighborhood. It doesn't have current tags on it, so I didn't want to get crazy with it. At one stretch of the road I was able to get it up to like 50, but if she gets tags on it, I'll probably take it up. See, I'll probably get it up around 70, 75, make sure it runs good, no vibration. One thing I will mention to her is the chain is getting ready. I mean, that thing's getting real loose, and it's already maxed out how much you can stretch it. Really what I'll look at is if I can pull this chain and see a tooth come out, it's past due, because that gets dangerous where you can actually skip a tooth and lose your chain. But if we do that, we'll change the chain and the sprocket behind here. You want to change those as a set every time. But other than that, let me know what y'all think. Let me know if y'all think I should have done more to the bike, and I'll let you know what she says, or if we do anything else to this bike. But it's definitely a runner now. So if I fix another bike, I guess I'll film it for y'all. We'll see y'all on the next one.